Golding.
Sorry?
Councillor Golding. You sent her apologies.
Sorry, Fatima?
No, Councillor Golding.
Golding, Sean.
Yes, and Fatima Begum, obviously. She's in hospital. Yeah. So if we add hers down, please, yeah? Can I sign the published record of the 20th of September, the minutes, please? Thank you. Remind members of Section 106, Local Government Finance Act, and disclosures of interest, and I believe we have some tonight, yeah?
Yeah, for selective license.
So 14 and 15,
yes,
you're
right.
declaring an interest in. And so you'll leave at that
yes,
stage. Okay. Business not covered by the current forward plan, and we haven't any. And we've no business of...
Javid.
Oh, Javid, you've got a... Number 10, okay. Thank you. And we're on items of special business not covered by the current forward plan. Special urgency, we haven't any, but we do have a reference from audit and governance, and I'm going to take that, if that's okay, with scrutiny with the report on Treasury Management. Is that okay, David? Yeah? Yeah, thank you. We've no recommendations from scrutiny, no petitions, and we're now on to item 8. And do you want to move the report from reference from Audit and Governance, David? No?
Well, no, not from Audit and Governance.
No, okay.
No, I'm not even on the committee.
Oh, you're not on that? Okay. Giving you extra work. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. The report is produced in accordance with the proper practice and corporate governance requirements and summarises both the Council's investment and borrowing activity for the financial year 21-22. Estimated General Fund 21-22 capital expenditure of £106.403 million is reported, revised in year 2 £155.593 million, covering prior year carry forward balances, compared to an outturn of £116.971 million. Estimated housing revenue account capital expenditure was £37.542 million compared to an outturn of £27.214 million. The majority of the capital expenditure which did not incur in 21-22 related to the financing of major subsidiary projects, the temporary accommodation purchasing scheme and commercial properties. All of this expenditure has been reprioritised to 22-23. This was reported to Executive in July 2022. During the 21-22, in accordance with the capital programme agreed by the Council, £220 million long-term funding was raised from the PWLB. This refinanced £44.728 million. HRA debt, along with the £94 million prior year short-term inter-council borrowing, mainly in order to mitigate against interest rate increases. £81.272 million was used to fund debenture loans to arm's-length companies and the wider capital programme. The investment activity during the year conformed to the approved strategy and allowed the Council to manage its liquidity position. The Council maintained an average balance of £51.27 million of internally managed funds, and these funds earn an average rate of return of 0.073%. In cash terms, this equates to £40,000. However, £25,000 was paid to third parties as the Council manages these balances. As expected, much of the Council's investments were kept short in instant access money market fund accounts at rates ranging between 0.0% and 0.53%. At the end of the financial year 21-22, the expectation for interest rates within the Treasury Management strategy was the bank rate would rise to 2.75%. Our advisors, the 23rd of September 22, have since revised their interest rate forecast and expect interest rates to rise to 5% by December 2022, remaining at that rate until December 2024 before reducing to 3.25% in March 2025. The Council is assessing the financial impact of the increases on its capital programme and revenue budgets. The report demonstrates that the Council did not breach any of its prudential limits during the financial year 21-22. The report is submitted to Executive Committee on 10th of October 2022 in accordance with proper practices set out by the CIPFA Prudential Code for Capital Finance in Local Government. The Executive is recommended to approve the submission to full Council, the annual report on Treasury Management and Prudential Indicators for the year ended 31st of March 2022, which summarises and reviews the Council's Treasury Management activities for the 21-22 financial year. Also note that there has been an increase in the amount of external borrowing, 89 million during 21-22, which is financing Council approved projects. And also note that the Council did not breach any of its prudential limits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rob. Are you incorporating the recommendation from Audit and Governance into your report, accepting it?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, are there any comments from anybody? Are you happy to approve?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Now move on to item 9, and that's you, Rob.
The Corporate Performance Report complies and presents both quarterly and annual service data, which allow performance to be monitored and discussed at CLMT, overview and scrutiny, and executive prior to headlines being published to staff and citizens. The background is that COVID-19 and the lockdown measures have had severe and sustained impact on services across the Council. However, there has been a steady rise in positive performance with each quarter. The Quarter 1 22-23 report shows a significant leap in good performance from Quarter 4 21-22, with many services which have been heavily impacted by COVID-19 now operating above or within target levels. These results highlight that the measure services have taken to adapt the challenges and new ways of working have had tangible positive impact on performance and service users. Work is currently underway to provide a more in-depth understanding of the gap between average wages in Luton and where vacancies are outnumbering unemployed people. Links to the Luton Insight dashboard are included within the report in order to provide a more in-depth understanding of performance and changes within the town, and this includes data at ward level. Work is currently underway to develop a clear direction, milestones, targets that will support and inform the councils and towns' trajectory towards net zero carbon by 2040. Performance indicators and monitoring mechanisms are being looked into in this process. 21 measures are green, 6 are amber and 6 are red, which shows that overall performance is good and it's improving. The highlights of this performance have been airport passengers numbers for the first quarter of 22-23 are in line with the expectations set out in Louth's business plan, Quarter 1 22-23. The rate of homeless applications to acceptance is 12%, which is below the target, and England average of 20% of total decisions. Remaining below the target indicates positive performance, as it means that fewer people are being registered as homeless. The number of homeless households allocated a permanent offer through the housing register is 46, which is above the quarterly target. The proportion of registered care services rated good or outstanding, Quarter 1 figure, is 75%. The number and percentage of senior employees of an ethnic minority background aiming to reflect our communities, Quarter 1 figure of 22%, is on track to reach a target of 2% a year-on-year increase in ethnic minority background representation. The total business rate during total business rates collected in millions, Quarter 1 figure of 24.8% is on track to reach the annual target of 99%. The percentage of corporate and housing statutory compliance checks have either maintained or improved. The amount of council tax collected on Quarter 1 figure is 29.9%, which is on track to meet the annual target of 96.5%. The percentage of adults in contact with secondary mental health services who are in employment have reached a quarterly target of 10%. The number of newly approved foster carers, Quarter 1 figure, is 6, which is on track to meet the annual target of 25. The number of cases prevented from becoming homeless, Quarter 1 figure, is 138, which is on target. The percentage of children attending good and outstanding primary schools, Quarter 1 figure of the 93.5%, is above the target of 89.7%. The percentage of children attending good and outstanding schools, Quarter 1 figure, stands at 100%. The Executive is recommended to note the Quarter 1 22-23 outturn on performance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Rob, are there any questions or comments? Are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We now move on to item 10 and the mid-term scale fees and charges.
Given the unprecedented increase in inflation and the proposed pay award for this year, the Council finds itself exposed to increased costs that were not factored into the budget approved by the Council in February, and that contributed towards a 10 million overspend that was reported at Q1. As a result, a mid-year review of our fees and charges have been undertaken. The report presents the outcome of that review for the fees and charges that are the responsibility of the Executive. The charges related to the regulatory service such as licensing and the registrar service fall under Administration and Regulation Committee, and that will be reported to that committee later this month. The proposed charges are listed in full in Appendix to the report. Appendix A and the table in paragraph 14 of the report indicate that the proposed charges are estimated to deliver an additional 192k in income to the Council for the remainder of the financial year. So in full financial year, these charges should deliver about 450,000 of additional income, which will help reduce the reported overspend I referred to earlier. Paragraphs 17 to 23 of the report outline the main changes that are proposed for each service, and where necessary, integrated impact assessments have been prepared and also attached as appendices to the report. The Executive are recommended to approve the mid-year increases to the scale of fees and charges to be implemented with effect from November the 1st, 2022. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rob. Are there any questions, comments? David.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hazel. This report did go to Finance Review Group, and there was a considerable amount of discussion there. The two issues that I can't remember, to be honest with you, whether they formally sent a resolution to Executive. I suspect they probably didn't in the end. But the two issues that came up very strongly were what they considered to be excessive percentage increases in taxi and private hire licensing fees, which, as Rob's explained, goes to admin committee. So if that will be the place where people may raise it. The other issue that came up was the increase in collection charges for bulky household waste, furniture and fridges and stuff. And the query there really is, have you made a provision for increased costs for dealing with fly tipping, because inevitably there will be an increase?
Rob, did you want to respond to that?
Well, I can respond, and maybe Tom will respond after, but in relation to the costs, increase of costs, all the costs have to stay within the perimeter of the service that it's in. So the idea would be that we would need to, if we had to put that towards fly tipping, if we had to do that. So yes, we have made them aware of that. So I don't know if Tom wants to respond as well.
Yes, the wage costs was taken away.
Any costs what come in, those charges on fly tipping are spent on cleaning up fly tipping. Any charges for bulky household waste what come in are spent on cleaning up fly tipping. Our problem is at the moment is the recommendation is £42 per pound bins. That money by law must be spent on cleansing activities. So any increase in costs will be spent on cleansing activities.
Okay, thank you. All right, David. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from anybody? No? Are we happy to agree the scale of charges? Thank you very much. Now move on to item 11 and to Maria with the Health and Safety Work Plan.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the annual plan is to inform elected members as to how the Council will meet service delivery requirements in respect of health and safety, statutory inspection and enforcement and responsibilities in line with Section 18(4) of the Health and Safety Work Act 1974. It identifies the resources available for health and safety activities and sets out how these will be prioritised during the year. The Health and Safety Service is a statutory frontline service. Where cuts to funding or resources occur, statutory obligations required by the Health and Safety Executive, as described in the plan, will not be achieved, adversely impacting on the Council's public protection role. The plan was considered by the Overview and Scrutiny Board on 9th August 2022. Executive is recommended to approve the Health and Safety Work Plan 2022-23 set out in Appendix A. Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the annual plan is to inform members as to how the Council will meet service delivery requirements detailed in the Food Standards Agency's Food Law and Feed Law Codes of Practice. It identifies the resources available for food activities and sets out how these will be prioritised during the year. The Food Safety, Food Standards and Feed Law Service is a statutory frontline service. Where cuts to funding or resources occur, statutory obligations required by the Food Standards Agency, as described in the plan, will not be achieved, adversely impacting on the Council's public protection role. The plan was considered by the Overview and Scrutiny Board on 9th August 2022. Executive is recommended to approve the 2022-23 Food Safety, Food Standards and Feed Law Service Plan set out in Appendix A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So, Executive is recommended to note and comment on the contents of the report and presentation. Support the establishment of the Adult Social Care Reforms Programme Board and associated work streams at officer level. Note that individual actions and projects meeting executive requirements will specifically be presented for it to review and comment at the appropriate time. Note there are no financial implications in the current financial year, but any financial implications for 23-24 onwards will be included in further reports as per recommendation for Council budget estimates for 2024. The landscape of adult social care is changing and the Council will need to adapt and implement substantial changes in order to prepare and comply with legislation and guidance. Whilst we do not have the full detail of some of the reforms due to active consultations, guidance yet available, we know that adult social care and wider departments will be impacted over the coming years. Implementation policy intentions are the people are heart of care. The Health and Care Act, which reintroduced Part 2 of the Care Act 2014, cap on care costs, and local authority assurance programs, the implementation of liberty protection safeguards from deprivation of liberty safeguard dolls. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Are there any questions or comments on the report? None at all. Oh, David, sorry.
A question, thank you very much. Yeah, the presentation says the Health and Social Care Levy is intended to cover the cost of the reforms. I just wondered what contingency plans you have given the news that's coming through in the media that the Health and Social Care Levy is being considered to be abolished.
So, at the moment, we have a certain amount of funding for this year is all funded. Going forward, there is uncertainty, and we're waiting to, and this is part of it, us to do this program to find out what sort of funding stream will be to replace the loss. That is a concern for us, for the funding, and at the moment, we're funded for what we're doing at the moment, but obviously going forward, we're still waiting to hear back from government what the funding structure will look like.
Thank you.
So yeah, just to respond to that a bit more fully, because the report refers to the Health and Social Care Levy, that's as it's been following its process. So the Health and Social Care Levy has now been removed due to recent mini budgetary changes. So the assurance that we've got at the moment is that reforms will continue to be funded, but through general taxation. What we don't know is the level of funding that we'll receive, so that will come through in subsequent reports and details that will follow the executive process. We're aware that there might be a gap, so we're working on some financial modelling, I think is fair to say, in the background to understand the overall impact. But we are acknowledging that a lot of it we won't know until government's settlement schemes later on in the autumn.
Are there any other questions, comments? Yes, Rob.
Just a comment, really. I think it's fair to say that we are working in the dark here a bit with this one, and it is a wait-and-see situation, I believe, and from a finance point of view, we just want to see more substance to find out exactly what it is from a financial point of view. But we are where we are. They're not coming out with the information that we need to be able to prepare properly for it at the moment. That's just a comment, really, because we are in the dark. I think that's right to say, Dev, isn't it?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Are we happy to approve the report for us this evening? Thank you very much. You're leaving the room. Okay. Move over to Tom for item 14.
Yes, Chair.
As you're probably aware, under the 2004 Housing Act, Part 1 of the Act, there is already a mandatory HMO scheme in Luton. That mandatory scheme is carrying on. What the report's about is a discretionary HMO licensing scheme, which is for properties which have 5 or less people in them. We went out for consultation along with the general licensing scheme for South Ward. We got told we got threatened with a judicial review. My view of the grounds of the judicial review were very small, but we have now employed a barrister to assist us to get the scheme through. On top of that, what they did say as part of the reasons they were asking for a judicial review is that Overview and Scrutiny Board did not have a proper debate on it. We went this time, Overview and Scrutiny Board have had a proper debate. It took over half an hour of the debate there, so that part of it has gone away. We've agreed that it goes back to Overview and Scrutiny Board. All we're asking is that we go out for consultation, to start the consultation again and get the scheme in place. And this time we will be having legal advice working alongside us to make sure it happens.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions on the report? Yes, David.
You're well aware that we, the Liberal Democrat members, fully support what you're trying to do in HMOs, and indeed the next item on the agenda as well, the licensing of private tenanted homes in South Ward. Our concern is this is what, third or fourth attempt to get this sorted. I mean, how can we be confident that you've actually got it right this time? Other authorities have enacted these things without half the problem that Luton's had.
Some other councils like Bristol and places like that have had the same problems we've had off the private landlords. They've done theirs a different way this time. What we're saying is the two schemes are completely separate. I'm not going to talk about them. The individual licensing scheme for individual properties. This report, because that's one of the reasons we got threatened with a judicial review, that both schemes were too linked together. So this report is just about HMOs. It's just about HMOs with 5 or less people in them, because we've already got the mandatory scheme in place for properties with more than 5 people in them. Completely separate scheme from the licensing scheme. As you say, there's another report about the general licensing scheme next. This time we have been taking legal advice off a barrister, what's staying with us all the way through to fetch it to completion. His views are, it was 50-50 whether we should fight the judicial review or not. But I'd rather we got it right and got it in, and this time he was seeing all the reports before it goes off to Overview and Scrutiny Board, before it comes back to the executive. The results of the consultation will all be being passed to the barrister so he can check everything and make sure what we're doing is 100% correct. I mean, if you look at, I think page 266, look at the reasons they came up with a judicial review. I mean, one of them is the fact that there wasn't enough debate about it at full council. One of them was the report was there, but the impact assessment wasn't attached to the report or went to overview and scrutiny board. Mistake, admin mistake, but it's there. And it gave them an opportunity. That's how close they're looking at what we're doing. So all I'm talking about now is the Hmo licensing scheme for the 5 people or less, smaller properties. I'm sure we'll talk about the other one in a few minutes. Being very careful what I say about the Hmo licensing scheme and asking the council to move forward with it.
Yeah, I thank Councillor Shaw for that. Obviously, we hope we have got it right this time, and I guess you ought really to be prepared for some landlords who don't want to be subject to these licensing arrangements to challenge whenever they get the opportunity, and they will do so. I'll refrain from asking the same questions on the next item.
Because my belief is we will face a judicial review no matter what happens with the landlords we've got in Luton. But when we do face it, hopefully the advice of barristers given us will ensure that we've got a better than 50-50 chance, like you said we got at the moment, in more like 80-20 of winning that judicial review, which I'm pretty sure will come forward.
Number item 14. Agreed. Thank you very much. Now move on to item 15. Over to you, Tom.
This is under the same 2004 housing.
Tom, you...
2004 housing act, and believe it's part 1 or maybe part 2. We can do an individual licensing scheme for rented properties as long as it's below 20% in any one area of the town. I suggest we move forward to a consultation on fetching an individual licensing scheme in Luton. We do so as a completely separate scheme than the Hmo licensing scheme, and that the consultation is done separately from the Hmo licensing scheme, and that when the report comes back, it goes overview and scrutiny board for them to check it before it comes back to the executive for implementation. We will look at the shortest possible period for the consultation, but we take legal advice off our barristers to see what the shortest period we can do that consultation in is. I ask the council to accept all the recommendations.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions from anybody? No? Oh yes, David.
Thank you, Chair. Tom, I welcome this because obviously everybody is entitled to good housing. Are we like to be able to extend it to the rest of the borough at some point?
What we will say at the moment is 20% of the rented properties in your borough by the individual licensing scheme. I understand that some of the London boroughs did their first one and then they moved on to all the borough. It depends on whether the Secretary of State will give us permission to do that. But once we've got the first one under our belt, then my intention would be to go as wide as possible, as quickly as possible, to see how far we can go and how quick we can do it. But we will be relying on the Secretary of State for Housing. Hopefully it'll be Lisa and Andy by then, and she will give us permission. But at the moment, I'm not sure we will get permission to do it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Are we happy to agree the report? Thank you very much. We now move on to item 16. Conchita?
Thank you. All local councils in England have a statutory duty to provide a comprehensive and efficient library service for all persons, for those who live, work, study and visit their area. A comprehensive service has broadly been defined as delivering a service that is accessible to all residents using reasonable means, including digital and technology. An effective service must ensure the best use of assets available in order to meet core objectives and vision, whilst also recognising constraints on the Council's resources. The library strategy, adopted in June 2020, further defines the term comprehensive and efficient. and recognises that library services should be shaped by and reflect the communities they serve. The service is currently managed and delivered by Active Luton, with the contract due to end on the 31st of March 2023. The Executive approves the next phase of consultation and notes the procurement approach to allow the continuation of the strategic review of the library service, whilst providing stability to the service and maintaining statutory library services. Executive is asked to note the Phase 1 analysis report and Appendix A. Executive is asked to endorse the further development of the proposals put forward in this report for a second phase of consultation. And Executive is asked to note the procurement approach and timeline. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions of the report? Is it agreed? Thank you very much.